computer. Okay. So let's see. Now I have to remember, there's the button. Let's see. There. So let me tell you where the Tongass is. So if you don't know, the Tongass is in Alaska. So this is my first time in Alaska. I've always wanted to go. But it's kind of strange because if you don't know this, I mean, we know Alaska's big, but when I say it's big, it's big. And we actually were on Prince of Wales Island. And if you cannot tell, basically we're still like in Washington. It's not that much different. It is the Pacific Northwest. It is beautiful. It is lush. It is wet. Did I mention it is wet? It is like Texas because everything that is vegetation is trying to kill you. I am not joking or exaggerating on that. And so I was looking on the Alaska travel site and they have this beautiful diagram. And this is very, very important because of this beautiful thing right here. If you do not know, if you haven't heard of extra tufts or wellies, all these insulated boots, I love that when they talk about summer in the Tongass, about what you should wear or just what you should wear while you're in Alaska, they have a whole thing on what type of boots. And they're like insulated versus not insulated. This comes back later. Also that they have a whole thing on rain pants. So summers, temperature-wise, are quite lovely. They, you know, the highs are in the 60s, the lows are in the 40s and the 50s. Daylight is very long. It's great because you come home at 10 p.m. after a long day in a cave and hiking, and it is just starting to get dark. It's glorious. So when you see us coming home at night, just mentally note that, what that actually means. These are very long days. So how did I get involved? So I work for the National Cave and Karst Research Institute. I am the education program manager. And if you don't know, I'm also the National Speleological Society's education division chief. I swear that is not a conflict of interest. But anyway, once upon a time, I went to this thing called the National Cave and Karst Management Symposium. It was in Texas, which is where I'm originally from. And I finally got to meet this lovely lady, Riley Drake. And I've heard a lot about Riley because we both were part members of the NSS. She's a member of the BOG. I'm one of the minions. And she found out that I have no problem following protocol. And so she's like, hey, we should go caving together. How do you feel about doing some cave science? And I go, that sounds great. And so she said later on, so about February this year, she was like, hey, do you want to go to the Tongass with me? That sounds great. And she's like, I need some more, I'm just going to call it, for lack of a better word, minions. And I'm like, well, your science is very interesting. And there's this person named Dan Jones, and I think he might like your science. So maybe we can collaborate. So let me go back or talk about. So Dan Jones works for New Mexico Tech. He is the he's the Cave and Karst Studies Director for New Mexico Tech. And every year they do this program called U-Rocks, and which is originally from James, is very similar to the James Madison University program. So basically they were like, oh, this is this idea of undergraduate research opportunities in caves and karst. So U-Rocks versus U-Rock. Like, hopefully there's no patent issues, copyright issues with that, but I'm just double checking because there's some chat. Okay. So no and so every year there's these undergraduates have these research opportunities, and usually what happens is an undergraduate comes up to Dan and says, hey, I have this project idea, help me find a mentor. But what happened this year was, like, I go to Dan, I'm like, hey, I have this project idea, do you think maybe there could be some collaboration? He's like, I have a great idea. Maybe we can basically, is this an appropriate trip for undergraduates? And I'm like, well, I think we can make it one. He's like, well, that makes my life easier. Does it make your life easier? I'm like, yeah. And so we all met up And we all came up and we made this application. We have asked for students to apply. And we chose these two wonderful students. Come on. Antonia Chavez and Celeste Flores. And this was really great. So you have Riley, who just finished her master's. And so she is a microbiologist. She's really into antibiotic resistance. That's what she's looking at. So kind of like virology kind of drives her, all these other pieces. You have, my background is biology and chemistry and education. So I'm coming at it from that place. And I also love, if you don't know, I love cave inventory. And so you have this environmental science person, we have this engineer / robotics person, and they're coming in through these different lenses. And it was just, which is really great to have this kind of intersection. And so, you know, the big piece or big driving piece, and especially at New Mexico Tech, is for students to have these hands-on experiences. And so from New Mexico Tech's point of view, they were super stoked that we were helping facilitate that with these undergraduate research experiences and field experiences. But at the same time, I'm now going to Alaska instead of a normal caving trip. These are now my humans. And so now I have to bring them back alive. So objectives, of course, be safe and more mentally and physically safe. And I'll talk a little more about this eventually. Somewhere else, I'll have a whole presentation about mental versus physical safety. I'm actually a big believer in it because they're both very important for not only for you to be physically safe, so taking the right precautions, into like having the right PPE, taking the right hazard mitigations, but also mentally safe, which, you know, so I'll kind of come back to that of what I mean by mentally safe, because a lot of you, but I think for a lot of places, you know, when you feel really confident, you are mentally safe. If you feel comfortable in your environment, if you're comfortable with the places, with the people you are, you're mentally safe. But we all have been to a place in a room where we're like, not the happiest person. All right, other objectives, have 2 undergraduates, research experience, remote environments, learn about cave resource monitoring and sampling techniques. So basically, we want to get them in this remote environment. We want them to understand the logistics of that. What does that mean when you can't go home and home is far away and rescue is really far away, and calling home is through a sat phone. If you can, and by calling, I mean texting. We're also doing milk. One of the undergraduates, Antonio, is furthering one of Riley's experiments, looking at moon milk, how it like human impact versus non-human impact, or minimal human impact, I think is the better way of saying that. And also doing this groundwater study and looking at microbes and antibiotic resistance and pH and conductivity. And then we also had a planarium project too. So there was a bunch of things going on here. So preparing. So preparing means everything. So everything from, we had gear lists. We made sure that all our undergraduates had boots, that they had cave suits that fit them. That was a thing. Riley took training about dealing with bears and had a great pack that had a nice rifle sidearm thing, and also just getting the gear there. So all of that goes into, so you have your personal gear, you have the logistics where you had to get permits, we also had to get funding, all that goes into preparation. But one of the big parts about preparing is also to mentally prepare these 2 undergraduates who had never done a remote field experience. So having, as I said, safety, that's physical and psychological, and they kind of go hand in hand. And so one of the things we had to express to the undergrads is that they were going to this remote environment. And not only were they going to go there, the people who they had to count on was us, and if that was going to be okay with them. And for them to also realize that we had their interests, their best interests, and that thing, not only were we going to be in a small team, but like we were invested in them. And some of it was just showing that we were invested by making sure they had the proper gear, like giving the gear list, making sure they had cave suits, making sure they had boots, and making sure they had helmets. For them to realize, okay, these people are invested in me. They don't want me to get hurt. If they're going to invest this, okay, maybe they, I actually met Antonia's mother. So another person, if I go missing, she knows what I look like. That's not, she's on the list, okay? But this is a big part in like coming into these caving trips and when we are in these remote places is making sure that we have this understanding with each other that like whether we are physically capable or not physically capable, that we're going to listen to each other. And so we had a lot of talk about communication. And as you guys, many of you are doing safety trainings about that and how communicate. And so that was a big part of what we expressed. And for that, for everyone in the group to know if they said that something felt off, that we were going to listen. And that's a big part of it. It's not only do you feel prepared, but also if you don't feel prepared, that you can express it and you can express about mitigations in a way that everyone feels comfortable. And so you can go forward in a way and leave in a way that everyone kind of feels like they're part of the team. And that's what I mean by psychological safety, is knowing that you're going to be listened to and also feel like you can get out of there. Even when you're in this really, really, really remote environment. So even when you know help is 2 days away, that you know everyone on that team is going to make sure you get home. That's what I mean. All right, getting there. This is why we made it such a big deal. So Prince of Wales doesn't seem so far, but we had to fly to Ketchikan. So for us, that meant we had to go to Seattle and then we take a little hopscotch to Ketchikan. Not their first flights. That bear is actually a pillow and I'm very jealous. And then we had to take a ferry from Ketchikan, from the Ketchikan airport to the city itself. And that's where our hotel was. And then we took another ferry to Prince of Wales, which is the island we were on. And then we had to drive to the Red Bay Trail, which I should have put a map on here because it is on the actual other side of the island. So you get to you start at kind of the middle part of the island is where the ferry is to Hollis. So we go from Ketchikan to Hollis, and then we drive another 3.5 hours to get to Red Bay into the trail. And then we hike to the lake, which is another 1.5 miles. And then we boat across the lake. And then we finally arrived at the cabin. And so I would love to say this is what it looked like when we arrived at the cabin, but this is what it actually looked like. So remember I told you we had really long days and nights kind of started around 10 p.m. So you can kind of guess what time this is. While we were in Ketchikan, we met up with another student. This is Sam. Sam actually goes to Tufts in Boston. So he's a biology student. He kind of was with us for the first week. So you'll see some pictures of him. I'm mostly going to focus on the New Mexico Tech students because I work for New Mexico Tech. But it was great to have a biologist. I think he's more into neurology. And so it gave us a whole other perspective while we were looking at these caves. All right, our accommodations. Quite pretty, right? Can you see this pretty well? You need to. So there's no electricity at this cabin. There's no running water, but it's quite pretty. Did I mention it's wet? These pictures will give you a false sense of how wet it is. I will, because it rained literally every day. So, but like all people, as soon as the sky, the sky breaks, you can probably tell with Celeste cooking up here, it's actually raining as she's cooking. But there was a day where the sun broke out, came out, and yes, I took as many pictures as possible. Because wouldn't you? And as you can tell, we're using solar power. That's how we got a lot of things done. As I said, no electricity, but it was nice and toasty because we had a fireplace. We had a place where all the science happened. We did all the cooking outside because all the science was happening inside. And there's kind of this upstairs bunk area, and that is where we slept. So we're cozy. So as I said, we ate outside. And we did a lot of science at night. So they're actually they're making slides of planaria here. So we looked at the planarium under the microscope to look at their little Shrek faces. So they had like the little nobbins for their eyes. Really beautiful. As I said, very pretty accommodations. I don't know if you can tell, it is raining in this photo. So we had a pump with a car battery that we used to get our water. So there was a hose that we used to turn on and off by connecting and disconnecting the battery. This cabin, as you can tell, was built a while ago, and so there is all these interesting pieces to the wood. There's a lot of shell casings that are embedded in because it's mostly hunters that go out there, but it's a really beautiful, very comfortable cavern. Other comforts, we had mussels one night. We had a fire almost every night. I guess I should say I was the one who caught the mussels. Don't ask me what I was wearing. It was cold. So our first cave. So as I said, these students had never been in a cave before. So so they are with us for 2 weeks. They are in the Tongass. They are literally thousands of miles from home. And now they're finally going into a cave. So how do you prepare these two undergraduates for 2 weeks of field research when they had never been in the cave? Well, you level them up. So this is day one. This is about how far in. It's hard for you to see, but this area is actually right to the side, like they're behind where we're sitting. And so they at all points in time were right by like less than 5 minutes from the entrance. We got really into the water. So the first day we got them to go as far back as they felt comfortable crawling through. And there's water, so they could go through, they can do that. And we just kind of like, whenever you want to turn around, you're good. And so we just kind of like let them kind of go at their own pace, kind of go through, and really also kind of honestly distracted them with the work. And so here we are actually looking for the planarium. We got earlier, you can see us getting water samples. Oh, sorry, here they're getting, Sam's taking data for the water samples. And so we kind of just worked very slowly about getting in. This cave was literally 5 minutes from the road. It takes on, if you couldn't tell, a lot of water. As we kind of entered the cave, we also let them just slowly feel what it's like to be in cold water. We also was like, how you feel in your cave suit? How do you need more layers? What can we do? What can we help you with? How are you today? If this trip was only an hour and a half, now if it was going to be a 3-hour trip, what would you need? What can we do? How did you feel? We had a lot of talks about, being in these areas and like letting them kind of feel out their levels of comfort. So as I said, if you can kind of see that this entrance is right to our right. So we're all very close. And by the time they were done, this is Celeste climbing a waterfall. And we just slowly but surely just like did something different. And every day was a little harder, but also at the same time, we had lots of objectives. So if basically the first day they're like, this is as far as we can go in the cave, we had 5 other caves that were just like that. So it didn't affect our objectives at all. We had so many objectives. We just were like, okay, let's see. Could you do a little more? Can you go for a little further in? What do you feel? And same thing, like a lot of times, like with this climb, our undergraduates were sandwiched. So Riley would go through first, I would go last, and Apparently, when you see someone with an ankle injury still being very, very comfortable chimneying, apparently makes, people feel like they're in a good environment. Who knew? So getting to the cave. So as I said about that boat, we had a motor. It died at one point in time. In fact, we still had 3 days of caving. So instead of a 20-minute trip across the lake, it became an hour and a half trip, which we actually got down to 38 minutes rowing. There was lots of singing involved. If you if you don't like the songs from Moana, this was not the trip for you. So we had to row, we had to do the hike, and then we had to do the drive. So even though we're on the other side of the island, a lot of the caves are still a half an hour to an hour to an hour and a half drive away. So there is still a lot of driving, and there's still, of course, a lot of hiking. These pictures are also misleading because, of course, you take out the camera when you have enough of a space to take out a camera. So if you can imagine like the trees in your face and all up in your armpits, that's most of it. And it's steep and it's wet. So this photo to the left where you see the people, can you guys see the cave? I swear there's a cave in that photo. Yeah, it's like 3 feet to the left of Antonio. So he's in the blue shirt. So he is, yeah. But a lot of things are also false floor. And yeah, and the cave to the right is the cave that they're right next to. So if you are like not being very careful, you literally like walking into a cave the wrong way can very easily happen. There are a couple of caves that were logging dumps. And so it looks like a floor and it's just a bunch of logs covering a cave entrance. So as I said, the terrain is not a joke. Do you see the cave right next to Antonio? I now looking at these pictures, I should have told him a little bit about moving to the sides and farther from cave entrance, duly noted. What you also can't, so also in this beautiful picture to the left, that is Devil's Club, which if you do not know, is amazing. It is a great salve. People have literally been using it for thousands of years, from everything from arthritis to colds. Great stuff. It will try to kill you every way possible. Otherwise, it is the most stabby thing that I've ever dealt with, and I grew up with mesquite. So getting into these caves, I mean, even when they're non-technical vertical, they are still pretty vertical. So sometimes we used hand lines to get in. Sometimes we had to definitely do the scoot. And as so one of the things that we did is make sure all the all the undergraduates had the appropriate boots. This is actually a big deal because when you say boots or outdoor shoes, everyone kind of has a spectrum of what that means. So we made sure that we bought them the appropriate footwear and made sure they were going to have it and be comfortable. If you don't know, the symbol of Alaska is pretty much extra tufts. Have you seen that? These aren't extra tufts, but they're much cheaper and very similar. They are wellies with good traction. A lot of times we go through muskegs. They're beautiful, but if you don't know, you're basically walking on top of water. It's very, very squishy water. That's me poking the ground. It's very squishy. So we learned, the students learned everything from biological sampling. So we got amphipods, we found beetles, we found a lot of surface larvae, which was also very interesting. We did water chemistry, looking at the pH, we looked conductivity, looking at the different minerals in the water, looking at the microbes. And of course, the moon milk. So lots and lots of moon milk. And there's different types of colors and textures, and try to sample all of it. And then there's the preparation. And so we had something called the Dremel fuge. It is what it looks like. It is a centrifuge attached to a Dremel. I do have a video, but for time, I'm not going to show, but that's how we did our DNA and RNA extractions in the field. So there is a battery powered Dremel. It's pretty cool. So success. I like to think so. I brought everyone back alive somehow. They want to go back into caves. So I thought that was pretty successful. Where are they now? My significant other does not know. We almost took the black and white cat home. Seriously. Celeste is still working in the robotics lab. Antonio is still an undergrad. He is still doing environmental research, and he is also taking over the Moon Milk project. Riley just started her PhD. I am still over at NICRI, of course. These are just if you want to learn more. But special thanks to Dan Jones, New Mexico Tech and NICRI, and the Tongass Genomics Institute, and Eld, who donated to the Tongass Genomics Institute. So there was money for all the sampling. All the photos were taken by Antonio Chavez, Riley Drake, Celeste Flores, and me. I'll eventually individually credit them. Any questions? Yes. That is a question. Actually, that is great. I should have said. So moon milk is a very, very interesting formation because it is biological and a mineral deposit. So there's not a lot understood about it, but we just know that there is a biological component of it. And so it sometimes will be mineralized and sometimes it's very squishy and spongy. And I did not put the picture for you could see that it's like this kind of pasty texture. And so thank you. I duly noted I should add a slide about what is moon milk and why is that significant. But that is actually the whole reason there is that here's this is like, what's this biological, like here is this formation and there's this biological component. What does that mean? How does it end? What bacteria? All kinds of questions. We do not know. And that's what we're looking at. That's actually a great question. So Dan Jones is actually kind of going through a lot of our samples because there is a lot of we're having some problems with some of the DNA extractions or sorry, RNA extractions because of all the minerals that's in there. So he's got some. So we have some data, but it's like we want a higher confidence. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what Erin's calling me, which is funny. She's like, don't talk about moon milk. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So this is, so there was an initial experiment looking at moon milk that had been stepped on versus moon milk that hadn't been stepped on. And so there was like a whole like phyla of bacteria that was missing. And so that's where this became from. And so it's kind of to further that study. So this is a very remote area. And so this is pretty like people hadn't been in some of these caves in 40 years. Hunter wrote, hey, what does the NICRI grad program look like? Not related, but apparently Hunter is texting me right now. So hold on, what was your question one more time?
I just wondered if it was.
Ooh, no, it doesn't. It doesn't look like it. Well, maybe. Let me see. I do not see Erin on the Zoom. And I do know that, so I look like Riley tried to come in earlier, so I think there was like a convert. Like,
Hi there. Hi.
oh, she's here. Riley, do you want to answer the moon milk question?
What was the question? I can't hear when people ask you questions.
Oh, what was the moon milk question? Oh, well, yeah, we were getting questions about what's in it and then questions about disturbed versus undisturbed.
Yeah, so I guess like moon milk is interesting because it's sort of like a biological community if you ask a biologist, but if you ask a mineralogist, it's just like a mineralogical thing. So we were interested in the variety and like generally from what we saw, it was like a bacterial growth that was squishy in most cases, that hardened over time and was whitish. That was sort of what we were working off of. And the Tongass has more variety of moon milk than anywhere else in the country. There was black moon milk and purple moon milk and pink moon milk and red moon milk and hard moon milk and soft moon milk and creamy moon milk. And so we were interested in whether that was purely mineralogical or whether those represented like truly distinct bacterial communities. And the reason we were doing RNA extraction in the field was to sort of try to get an idea of the metabolism of those communities before we preserve the bacteria. And so our results are pending. As Devra mentioned, we have the things that were making the moon milk colors were certainly metal involved, and that's impairing a lot of our DNA extraction. So we've been working on different types of DNA extraction, and Dan Jones is helping us with that to sort of make sure we get a reasonably accurate picture of what we did sample in terms of like species distribution and community. That's yeah.
Thank you, Riley. I'm glad I also it sounded like I didn't do too poorly explaining.
Yeah, you did a great job.
And thank you for pointing out. That's the whole reason I'm doing this presentation. It's a good like run through of like what works, what doesn't, what should I include more of? Any other questions?
You mentioned a lot of the caves not being seen for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Were they like used heavily before that for like mining or
Oh,
dark sites or anything?
that is actually a great question. On the arc site part, maybe Riley can answer that a little, but a lot of it is there is a lot of deforestation. And so we had caves that we think were once upon a time pretty easy to get to because of the deforestation. And now it has 40 years of growth. And so now it's just this really dense underbrush. And so, because, you know, there's like things have grown back. But as for ARC, that is a question I don't know. I'm assuming that land has been utilized for literally thousands of years. Riley, do you know anything about ARC in the Tongass?
Yeah, I know that the caves that we got permits for had to be cleared for ARC, so they had to have that evaluation done. And the ones that hadn't been visited in a long time, a lot of them because they were sort of like photographed and mapped and sort of marked as significant caves that they didn't want to disturb them further. So they were used to like preserve and conserve the forest and draw boundaries with that. But then it was sort of like policy that they would not be visited regularly.
So yeah, not recreation sites. Mostly because of, honestly, for the moon that we went and technically disturbed. Any other questions? Yeah, I feel like I gave a false sense of how much it did, like how sunny it was. Sorry for that. It was very, very wet. I did not, but it's also pretty cold. And so those kind of, oh, that's not true. We did find leeches in the cave, actually. There was some leeches in the cave itself, but they were adhered to the rocks and not.
What? It was 2 weeks.
Yeah, till mid-July to early August.
Oh.
So the peak of the warm season, the peak of the nice season. So yeah. Anything else?
Would you go back?
Yes. Now who wants to go to the Tongass? That's the real question. Yeah, it's a very nice cabin. It was really pretty. The people there were amazing. Very small community. Like people like would see us and be like, "Oh, you're looking for caves? There's a cave over. I think it's this road." None of the roads have names. None of the roads have names. It's like you go make the second left and then the right, and then you see a hole to the right, and you're like, "Sure, we'll find it." We did, but that was the great part.
What was the most, I guess maybe you can't speak for them, but the most challenging component for the student?
Ooh, the most
they
challenging.
shared with you?
that they shared. I think like learning how to self-advocate was a big thing we were talking about. And that was like something we knew is that would be a challenge, and how to communicate that, like, you know, because you're tired, and be like, okay, I'm tired, but I'm good for all the objectives of today. And like modeling that was difficult, but good. And just trying to like get people to learn about how to ask for breaks, and how to because that was something I asked them in thereafter. And that's also what they were saying, is just that, you know, we could tell them how remote it was, but for them to realize once something was gone, what we had with them was gone. And, you know, that how to ration some of those comforts, or like if you had a sore throat and you wanted to have like, oh, I have 5 lozenges. It's like, maybe you shouldn't have all of them in a day. Maybe you should spread that. That's all you have. Anything else? Yippee skips. Thank you. What?
You're gonna have a lot of wet food.
What?
You go again and you have a lot of wet food newspapers. A lot of people in there.
Ooh, yes, we had we utilized the fireplace quite very, yeah. It's- well, let me get your let me,
A lot of folks in Zoom.
yeah, I did not notice when they came in. Yes. Ooh, hold it, but you saw him asked, oh, did I miss questions? I can't tell. Where's the chat? I cannot see chat. There it is. Okay. Oh, sorry, Sally. I couldn't. Yeah. She's saying that we couldn't repeat. So we're going to go to the meeting section, or the business section. You are welcome to stay, but we're going to talk about Grotto things. So if you are wanting to know more about Grotto things, we have Anthony here to share. Escape wants to escape there. Escape online. Knows.
I'm here.
He's me.
I'm Sally.
You're here.
You see? Oh. Am I, what am I, sorry, let me move some things. Knows. All right. You see? Awesome. Okay.
All right, so welcome everyone that's planning on sticking around for some of the business section of the meeting. We'll try to make this quick as we start to wrap up the 2022 happenings. Got this lovely presentation from Devra, so thank you for your time and your effort putting into that and sharing your stories. Kick it over to Sally and Gabe, if either of you have anything to update us on from last month and such.
No, there
Secretary and President update.
the secretary. So in terms of secretary update, not really much. I mean, I assume that like Devra is probably going to want to talk about the Bat Fest thing. You know, we've got some stuff that's happening, but I think that everybody else is probably going to have it handled. So not much from me.
And I've been in Colorado since October 9th, and I haven't done any caving. I'm employed now, but in terms of grotto and caving stuff, I got nothing right now. I'm in a new state.
New grotto and new caver friends to make, and maybe we can do some joint stuff, and we'll be happy to have you both back whenever you make it down here. I'm sure.
Bad idea.
Sally, maybe sooner rather.
Yeah,
than
I'll be around.
you, but
You'll see me.
all right.
You know, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
So if that's everything that you have, yeah, like Bat Fest and some other old business stuff, we can get to later on in the presentation. Phyllis is not here. Try to switch this over to the treasury update. So I'm going to speak on behalf of Phyllis, kind of the same tried and true story. If you haven't paid your 2023 dues, and you can either pay Myself, anytime you see me, wait till next meeting for Phyllis, a whopping $5 for the annual dues, so. Can skip your cup of coffee or pint of adult beverage for the night and be set up for a whole year's worth of Pecos Valley Grotto activities. In the bank right now, we have $3,107.98 and then $30 of cash. So the Grotto has a grand total of $3,137.98, hopefully to grow in $5 increments. As everyone pays their dues, we can maybe think of some ways we can put that money to good use this upcoming year for some projects or donations and such. Old business, just wanted to recap with some folks or, fill in for the new folks that are here in the audience. I do want to work and gotten Mike Manser's help on this and Ellen Trotner's help starting to put together a proposal for the Pecos Valley Grotto to start doing formation repair projects with the Bureau of Land Management. So look for that over the next month or two. I believe last meeting I identified maybe the January 2023 meeting of, having a proposal typed up and put together to have the Grotto as a whole for that meeting kind of look over and review and agree or disagree. So maybe that can be a good way to do some good with the, all successful restoration process and, get some more folks in the more caving trips. And I know the Bureau of Land Management needs folks in some caves, for photographing and gate inspection and, and some trip leaders for that. So does anyone have any comments on the restoration proposal? Ashley, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hard, and the question from the group here was asked like how to prioritize some of the projects, and that's something as we put the proposal together, we'll chat with Ellen and the Bureau of Land Management's needs and what they want out of us. There are a few caves, I believe McKittrick Cave, Sand Cave. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so there's at least a few caves out there that we can start with and kind of demonstrate this work and teach people the process and have the Bureau of Land Management get familiar and see results from it, and then we can branch off from there. But if they need us to do other stuff while we're there, flagging routes, historic or non-historic trash removal, that sort of thing, we can include that into the proposal. All right, and I know there are a few folks here in the room that attended the Southwestern Regional last month down here at Parks Ranch. So if anyone wanted to talk on that quickly, I myself wasn't there, but I hope the PVG was well represented.
Lunchroom that has a large mailbox, and the park wants to move that to a location so the public can't see it. And so we took about maybe 20 feet of the high voltage electric cables that were buried and exposed them so that the people that come in and do the work can get them more easily. So that was a project we have to do.
Nice. And just kind of a quick recap if you couldn't hear in the Zoom world. Michael Moffett and Mike Manser, both in attendance here, attended the Southwestern Regional. Some lint picking projects at Carlsbad Cavern, camel uncamouflaging to help move some electrical paneling around in the cave, some vertical practice, maybe some survey work or recreational trip or two. So all in all, seems like it was a productive and safe weekend. Safety is always very important. Any other old business anyone wants to mention before moving on? Anyone have any caving news from elsewhere? I think the slides may have jumped around a little bit, but that's okay. We can be adaptable. Sure. Michael Moffett is advertising anyone interested in helping Ridge Walk in the Quads. It's always a project that is available for anyone that has the time. You can reach out to Michael directly for that. All right, jumped around a little bit, back to some old business. Thank you for Devra and Isam and anyone else who assisted with it. Yeah, Ken. Ken's getting a shout out here from the crowd for helping out with the Carlsbad Bat Fest and the Carlsbad Main Street. I know the National Park Service represented and maybe did some joint activities or not. I saw some good pictures from my supervisors. It was from these photos that I learned that we have a banner, so that was fun. Always, oh, a handmade banner by Phyllis. That's even more impressive.
And actually Sally and Gabe donated, and now you guys have a library. I don't think banner and gear for with all the other grotto.
It's a good looking banner. I hope to see it at some more events as we continue to share our knowledge with folks. And then the cave sim, and hopefully that was successful. Folks that don't know what cave sim is, just kind of like a traveling educational exhibit developed with a lot of really hard work to have like a mock, I understand, is it like a virtual reality type of situation?
Yeah, so like actually like too close to that about you and yeah.
Fun.
NSS gave us a bunch of flyers and stuff like that, so I now have all the safe caving and that flyers for any grotto or any more outreach.
Excellent. So we got some NSS brochures for future outreach events. All right, some new business, some of it old business. Still looking to do some more survey projects and the compass training session. So maybe this winter we can get those squared away. I believe we talked about that at least the last meeting, not before. So again, if you're interested in that, learning those type of skills, just feel free to reach out to us, reach out to myself, reach out to Devra, and we're going to organize some training sessions in that. New business, I shared it in the Facebook group earlier this week, but Carlsbad Caverns National Park, the interpretation staff, many of the folks in the room at the moment are going to be helping out and performing in the Rock of Ages, candlelight lantern tour throughout the front half of the big room. It's been virtual for the last 2 years, so exciting to have it back in person. It's going to be a formation repair scene, so highlighting all the work that Mike Manser's done at the park. if anyone's interested, 6 dates, December 2nd and 3rd. I believe that's a Friday, Saturday. Thanks, Kevin. All Friday, Saturday dates, December 2nd and 3rd, December 9th and 10th, and December 11th and 17th, or 16th and 17th. Can read my notes here. 5:30 to 7:30, so it's an evening thing. I do want to make the price known, $55 per person. You can reach out to the park directly. There's a phone number that I'll share with everyone, to like a hotline to make reservations. So if you're interested in that, I'll be sure everyone has that information. But something exciting going on. Grotto auction, I know that typically happens sometime around the winter for the Pecos Valley Grotto. Seems like there's been some movement to maybe push it back a little bit this year, which I'm not opposed to. I just want to feel everyone's thoughts out for that. I'd like it if we do a grotto, maybe in like the spring or early summer, to maybe decide on like a project or a fundraiser or something ahead of time. That way we have a goal that we know this money is getting put to good use, rather than, just sitting around for us to use whenever it comes about. So if we have a goal, then maybe that could be a good option. Does anyone have any thoughts on the grotto before moving on to some of the next, or the grotto auction before moving on to the next parts? All right, see some thumbs up for maybe pushing it off. So maybe stay tuned for the spring or not for the grotto auction. Yeah, the next bit here, talking about the 2023 elections. Again, something that may typically take place around the winter time. Do we have any more experience or like guidance on when those things typically take place for the PBG?
You guys have.
Yeah, February seems about right, at least for last year's timing. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a constitution, thank you, Grotto, for place for about 60 years, but I'll keep the copy of that so you guys can.
Okay.
put together.
Yeah. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's
maybe
a
it should be.
conversation here in the room about whether or not there's a constitution or some bylaws that the PVG has registered with the NSS. So that may be a thing that exists. It's just been kind of, lost over the generations, of folks coming in and out and involvement. If not, then Mike Mansur with the Sandia Grotto might help us at least draft them. But any sort of information about elections and such will be in there. But thinking about, we can maybe establish with some executive power right now as February 2023 for election season. Sounds good. Get some thumbs up from the group here. So anything that anyone wants to run for, I guess, is fair game. Chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary. Might have to wrangle treasurer from Phyllis, but it's always good to have some healthy competition. If there is anything that anyone's interested in, it might be now's the time to start thinking about how would you approach these positions and campaigning and so forth with your fellow Grotto members. That way, when we have that election, we can keep things.
I'm guessing Phyllis has a copy of the bylaws as well.
Yeah, seemed like something
So.
good to reach out to her about.
Yeah. But I mean, you can just say you're going to do it in February and it's probably fine.
Sure.
That nominations in January.
Sounds good. Yeah, nominations by January, official election in February. Get things rolling for 2023 after that. Matches up good with the proposal project for the Bureau of Land Management repair stuff. So going once, going twice, anything else?
Holiday.
Yeah, the holiday party, the last bit on here. So in lieu of a formal December meeting, it's always good to, get together and have some fun. So thanks to Devra for offering up her house for us to celebrate a holiday party. Yeah, Pat Sizer's house, also Chris Stroud for those that work at the park. Yeah, and Esam as well. Yes, a good caving house. Will be the location of the holiday party. So what was the date? Friday, the December 30th, I think is what we were loosely kind of looking at. That way it's maybe closer to like a traditional weekend, Chris not interfering with Christmas plans or anything like that. So this Friday, December 30th, holiday party in lieu of a formal December meeting. Sound good for everyone? All right. I'm gonna advertise it as like a small potluck type of thing, BYOB responsibly on that. We'll look into it with Phyllis to see if like the Grotto can like maybe cater some stuff, get a few pizzas and drinks and whatnot to help cover that. Oh yeah, it doesn't have to be like a Grotto holiday party. We can build this as a Grotto recruitment party as well. So, anyone that, National Park staff, National Forest staff, Bureau of Land Management, anyone that may or may not be interested in caves. Could be good for them to come hang out with cavers. So yeah, it's kind of an open invite for anyone that wants to come celebrate the holiday season and a job well done this year with the variety of projects. So. Sure, yeah, I'm gonna, Mike, if you want to come up here and use the microphone, that way folks in Zoom land can hear us.
Okay, I'm Mike Manser, the NSS Southwest Region Chair, and we're going to be having the Southwest Region Winter Technical Meeting on December 3rd up in Albuquerque. And it's going to be at the UNM campus at Cassiter Hall on room 100, same place it was about 3 or 4 years ago. The breakout room will be on room 107, where we have the coffee and so forth. And I put out a message to all the Southwest region and all the grottos looking for folks who may want to have a buffet meal. And I had 24 total. So we have a room set aside in the Student Union Building for dinner after the presentations, which will be from 5:30 to 7:30. And the menus are already set. So the rest of the folks that come to the event can go to the Sawmill Market and get their food there if they like, but they won't be eating with the group that will be at the Student Union Building. So we have some other people that have volunteered their homes for people to stay at. Ron Lipinski just sent me an email today saying he'd be interested in opening up his house for some people to stay there. If you're interested, let me know. If you need accommodations other than hotels, if you want to do your own hotel, that's fine too. But we'll have that set up, and I'm not sure from Jerry how many presentations we have, but I think we have most of the day filled up. So if anybody has any questions, they can send me a message, Southwest Region Chair, and hope to see you all there. Thanks.
All right, and it just popped into my head while I was sitting there listening to Mike. Jen, are you still here on the Zoom call?
Yeah.
Okay, I know last month you sent the kind of survey link out for volunteering in the National Forest to the PBG email. I know there's been at least some new folks here at Carlsbad Caverns National Park, and maybe some folks that don't subscribe to the PBG email. Is that like survey still like live to like share it with everyone?
Yeah. And yeah, because I only got, I think, 6 responses. 4 of them were for Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, so there is a volunteer agreement with the Pecos Valley Grotto and the Forest Service to do volunteer work. And so I'm hoping to set up a time maybe in January after the holidays to sort of get a trip going. I know the problem for most people is that it's a 2-hour drive from town to get up there. But maybe we can start trying to do, and it will probably be cold in January as well, but we can at least sort of start looking at doing some projects. And then there might be a separate ridge walking project that Hunter and Michael Moffett are looking at organizing. But there are lots of opportunities. Well, I wouldn't say lots, but there are opportunities to go up in the forest and do some volunteer stuff. It's just that there's so much to do. I don't really know where to start, and most of the stuff is difficult. Like the picture you can see there, you got to go hike down a really steep slope. And we don't even know if we're going to find the cave that we're looking for. So that's sort of where we're at. I'm hoping to get something more organized in the future because I haven't gotten much traction in the past yet.
Well, I see some adventurous spirits sitting here in the group, so I know
Yeah.
we got some new folks here at the park that are very interested in getting involved with more caving. So I'll make sure everyone has access to that survey link.
Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. And I'll try and set a date because I think that seems to be the best way to sort of get things going. And then for those of you that are available on the weekdays, those are probably usually more last minute trips when the weather is good.
Sure.
And then I'm like, hey, okay, we can do it. Or no, we're not going to do it. It's 40-mile-an-hour winds. So, but yeah, so I'm hoping to get a little bit more traction going on a project with that, or many small projects rather.
Sure, sounds good. Well, we're happy to help in any capacity, so we'll look forward to getting that set up. Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
All right, any other new business going once, going twice? All right, what about like trip reports, member news, upcoming trips? I can start this off. We had a successful day today with myself, Tristan, Mike Manser, and Aubrey Brown. Got to go back into Spider Cave, an old favorite, and work on some existing repairs successfully in that cave. And then the three of us, Mike, Tristan, and myself, went back into the music room of Carlsbad Cavern and took some stalactijacks down in there. So some also successful. Always good to see. Some more work still yet to be done back there. So we'll work on organizing some future trips. If anyone else has anything exciting going on or had go on in the past, feel free to share.
Sally, do you want to talk about your library donation?
I mean, sure. They were books that we bought at the last Grotto auction and figured that we were moving, but we wanted them to stay with the Grotto, so we donated a box of books. I don't know, Gabe, do you know anything about them? Here.
Oh, you don't have to start the video.
Yeah,
Which box did you give them?
the big one with all the stuff in it.
Yeah, so that should be a pretty good list of NSS news papers and magazines. I don't know what's all in there, but there is obviously a ton if it's the box that I'm thinking of.
And it was donated by Rich Wolfert at
Yeah.
the Grotto auction.
And Morgan wants to know if there's a copy of Cave Minerals of the World in there.
No, no, definitely not.
No, there's
Sorry.
not. Sorry, I have that one.
Yeah,
It's
that's
on my
scandalous.
desk anytime you need it, though.
PDF scan it for you though.
Now, basically, we now have a Grotto library.
Grotto Library, that's exciting. Yeah,
If I could have carried it, I would have brought it down for the meeting, but
that's fair. That's understandable.
Just in a storage unit.
Mhm. Oh, right.
a lot more share.
Mhm. Well, if no one else has any sort of trip report or upcoming trip or anything going on, then
Oh, the next tech. Share. As soon as I know the dates, I'll put it on the email list. They're looking for people.
okay.
I think
I think it was just the school group.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
They're looking for- and, you'll probably, sooner versus later.
Yeah, New Mexico Tech Grotto might be coming down soon and looking for some trips and some fun to be had underground, something to keep your ears and eyes peeled for. All right, well, if that's everything, then I think we can go ahead and call this November meeting official. Sound good for everyone? All right. Well, thank you all for attending. Thanks again to Devra for the presentation. Let me see if I can work my way back to the Zoom call.
Oh, Anthony, I don't know if anybody there has a second to take attendance of the people in person, since I can't see them. That would be super helpful for me to have in the minutes.
Already done for you, Sally.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Good job.